Pricing your product correctly is part art and part science. If your prices are too high, then your customers will not buy from you. But if your prices are too low, then you might not make a profit, or your customers will perceive your product as being inferior. So the key is to get your pricing sweet spot so that you can maximize your profit margins and still remain attractive to your customers. Before we jump into this, you should remember that your prices do not have to be set in stone, as you should adjust them as and when it is required. It is a good idea to revisit your pricing strategy regularly, as you want to avoid leaving money on the table. To determine your price point, you need to know your customer, as this will guide you as to what they're prepared to pay for your product. A good way to start is to see what your competition is charging and then compare their product to yours. Depending on the quality or your competitive advantage of your product, you have three options: to price your product higher, lower, or the same as your competition. Whether you increase or decrease your price, you should always ask two questions, namely, 1, how will this affect my sales volume? And 2, what will this do to my profit margin? If you choose the higher option, your profit margin will increase, but your sales volume might decrease. By doing this, you also place your product into the premium segment. This strategy is called a value-based strategy, but it will only work if your customers believe that they are getting that extra value. For example, let's say you have a leaking pipe at your house and you call a plumber to repair it. The cost of the plumber may be 400 Rand, which will include his travel, his time, and his materials. He will then charge you, let's say, 1,000 Rand, but the value that you place on that repair might be 2,000 Rand. As Warren Buffett so nicely put it, price is what you pay, value is what you get. The perceived value of your product is influenced by your product positioning, which in turn is influenced by advertising, after-sales service, or sales techniques. Another way to increase your prices is to bundle your products with a value add such as free shipping or another product. If you price your product lower than your competition, you should take some of their market share and effectively sell more volume, but at a lower profit margin. This strategy is often used for promotions, but the problem with this method is it is essentially a race to the bottom. I would not recommend pricing your product the same as your competition, as then there's no differentiating factor. Pricing alone does not drive sales. It is your ability to sell the value of your brand, and this is explained by the difference between a 500,000 Rolex and a 5,000 Rand Seiko watch, when both are just as accurate in keeping time. There's also the psychological aspect to pricing, and that is by ending your pricing with an odd number such as a 9. For example, pricing a product at 99 Rand as opposed to 100 Rand. Studies have found that this little bit of charm pricing can increase your sales by 24%. Another psychological form of pricing is called anchor pricing. This is when you display your original price together with a discounted price, and now the customers can immediately see the savings in the purchase price. What is crucially important when working out your sales price is for you to know what your break-even cost for your product is, as without this knowledge you will not know if you're making a profit or not. To determine your break-even point, you must add all your expenses, both fixed and variable, and divide it by the number of products you produce. This is your break-even point per unit. Now you can add your profit margin and you should have your sales price. By the way, if this price seems too high, then you should first trim your costs and not your profit margin. This cost-plus method of pricing is very popular, but it has one flaw, and that assumes that you're going to sell all your product. It is slightly trickier to calculate your break-even value when it comes to handmade goods, as your time is a major component of the cost, and it's difficult to value your time accurately, as this is subjective. Similarly, pricing a food portion is a complex task, but follows the same principles of total cost divided by the number of portions. When pricing, you should consider other factors such as VAT, cost of late payments, the lifespan of your product, bulk order pricing, and wholesale prices. In a nutshell, each product should have their own pricing strategy, as pricing a product is not a one-size-fits-all approach. You should regularly revisit your pricing strategy due to the changes in your costs, your competition's prices, and your customers' requirements. By keeping all this in mind, you will optimize your revenue and keep up with the market. I hope this video has been helpful. So until next time, remember, we are here to help.